So, a very, very warm welcome to all of you and a very good morning to the class today. Today, we'll be revising deductions from gross total income. This is one of the very important chapter because a question from standalone basis or from a total computation basis can definitely come. If you are thinking of missing a chapter, don't try to miss this. So, welcome to the class today and let's begin once you're settled in. Today we'll be doing deductions from gross total income. Now, I understand students, this particular chapter is actually, if we go in a thorough revision, is of 2, 3 lectures. And I hope all of you have listened to the lectures which have been covered in detail in the class, which has all the sections there. We'll be doing a quick revision from hop on from one section to another so that most of the sections can be covered today. Since I have a 2 hour running time, before your queries or before the live session begins. So I'll just quickly wrap up from one section to another, tell you the important points you have to remember. And if required, we'll do a question also post each section, as in once each deduction section is covered, I'll ask your queries so that we can resolve it then and there. And if any of the query is left, please park it for the interactive session, which we'll be having somewhere around 9, 9, 10. Okay. So I hope the drill is clear to everyone. Good morning, Pooja. Good morning. So we have everyone in the house now. So let's start. I request the tech team to just send one testing query so that it can be clear. Is it perfect, Pooja? Great. Done, done. So deductions from gross total income. See, before going on to deductions from gross total income, you have to remember that this particular chapter gives deductions from the total income. Once you've computed your gross total income, that is from different heads of income, add all of them together, set off, carry forward, clubbing, everything is done. Then you give the effect of deductions from gross total income. It's yes, there are certain deductions in their particular heads. Like when I talk about salary, there is standard deduction, there's entertainment allowance deduction, professional tax deduction under section 16. When I talk about house property, there's standard deduction. Of 30% and interest deduction. And when I talk about business, so obviously you have certain deductions from section 32, 37. This is how it is going on, but these are particularly deductions from gross total income. GTI, which is covered under chapter 6A, not chapter 6A of the book, chapter 6A of the Income Tax Act, where these particular deductions from section 80C to 80U are covered, number one. Number two, you have to remember is that there is no, is my voice not clear? Can anyone please confirm? Is there any eruption in the voice? Please confirm. Nisag sir, is it okay? Uh, it is cleared. Okay. Sunil, just re-enter the chat room again or re-enter the Zoom, please. Okay. So another thing you have to remember is that because of deductions, you never have losses. That is, you can have your income to be nil. You will never have your gross total income turned negative. So suppose I have a gross total income of 4 lakhs, I cannot claim deductions to an extent of 5, 6 or whatever lakhs. I have to claim it or restrict it to 4 lakhs. Because of deductions, my gross total income can never be turned to a net zero or net negative taxable income. There is no carry forward of deductions. So again, in the same example, if I have a gross total income of 4 lakhs and deductions eligible amount of 5 lakhs, I cannot say that 1 lakh I can set it off next year. No, it is to be done this present particular year. Secondly, there are certain sections from which the deductions are not allowed, which are the special rate sections like under section 112, 112A, 111A. These are all capital gain section, long-term capital gain. Long-term capital gain on equity shares, equity-oriented mutual funds, and units of business trust, and similarly, short-term capital gain on equity shares, equity-oriented mutual funds, and units of business trust, and other special rates income. Also, the major important turning point which you have to remember, most of the sections from ATC to ATU are not eligible under the new scheme. New scheme is 115 BAC. So if you're computing tax as per 115 BAC, most of the sections except 2 or 3 at your particular level are not allowed. Like ATCCD subsection 2 is allowed, ATCCH is allowed, and ATJJA is allowed. Otherwise, no section is allowed for a person who is claiming the tax benefit as per the new scheme or the tax slab rates as per the new scheme. I hope these basic questions you will always remember when I talk about in respect to deductions. Apart from that, you have to remember that your entire deduction section, understanding chapter 6A, ATC to ATU, are categorized on 4 different types of category when you get deductions based on certain payments, that is during the previous year. During the previous year, if you make certain payments or certain investments, then you get deductions under particular heads. The conditions have to be fulfilled. Then there are certain deductions in respect of certain incomes, that if during a year you're earning certain incomes like royalty at your particular level or patency income, then in that particular case your deductions from the second category would be applicable, and other income is like ATTTA and ATTTB when you have saving interest or FD interest for senior citizens, and other deductions where it is ATU. These are the 4 categories. Obviously, you don't have to remember the categories, but you have to broadly understand that first coming category is respect to payments, second coming category is respect to incomes, and then other incomes and ATU. Also, please try to remember the sections under this particular chapter. You cannot say, ma'am, sections remembering is important, because deductions the play of sections and the conditions. And then there is another deduction which is all alone standing deduction under section 10AA. It is not there for everyone. It is there for a specified entity, for a specified type of income, and it is like a tax holiday period divided into a 15-year slab. So we will cover first the deductions in chapter 6A, and then we'll go to deduction in section 10AA. I hope right now we just briefed it out and everything is clear and sorted. Perfect. कहीं पे भी doubt होगा guys, we have to just put it in the chat box. And again, I'm saying in case any of your queries missed, please park it for the discussion part. So the first section which we're beginning with is section 80C, deduction in respect of certain payments made, where we have a very, very common one. Hmm. Where we have a very, very common one, which is deduction in respect of certain investments and contribution. ATC students, you have a roughly a list of 15, 16 types of payments where you can invest, where basically where you can pay or invest and claim the deduction. Remembering them, yes, definitely is important. The list to remember is important, so that you know if in question it will not be given that the person has claimed deduction under ATC. It would be given a type of payment during the year, and then you have to strike it yourself. Oh, this is the one which is covered under ATC. So the most important thing here is this is only allowed to individual and HUF, and for the maximum amount of 1,50,000. So no matter in whichever options available you want to contribute, remember the maximum contribution would be 1,50,000. No one is saying that you cannot contribute more. You can contribute more, but the maximum deduction which you will get is 1,50,000. And specifically, this particular deduction is again on actual payment basis. That is, if you will make the payment, then only you will get the deduction. Who will make the payment? The assessee will make the payment. And the payment has to be done in assessee's behalf only. The payment can be done for the good of assessee, and in some places for the spouse or for the children or the assessee also. And for the HUF, obviously in the benefit of the members. So I'll quickly just tell you through what are these particular plans available. You have ULIPs. ULIPs are unit linked insurance plan where you invest a certain amount and basically you get a return. In a way of investment which goes into the units, which is the stock market and insurance benefit. Similarly, there is life insurance policy. Mostly a question can come from a life insurance policy. Actually, remember one thing, students, you are investing in these policies. That is, you get the benefit of the payments which you make as investment, which are the premiums. Which are the premiums or the contributions. Do not confuse yourself that the benefit would be of the insurance cover amount or the maturity amount. No, the benefit is of the contributions which you're making, of the payments which you're making. So remember it very clearly that whatever premium you pay during the year would be allowed as deduction. But whenever a life insurance policy question comes, you have to check one thing, which is the premium with respect to capital sum assured. Premium with respect to capital sum assured. If premium is higher than a certain amount, the excess amount is not allowed. What is that? So suppose a person is making contribution either for himself or herself, spouse or any child, then in that case, the premium deduction would be allowed for life insurance policy. Life insurance policy is a policy which you take for the insurance of the life of an individual or the spouse or children. Now, the case which you have to remember here is, and mostly this is a checkpoint in all of your question is, premium versus capital sum assured. So if a policy is issued before 2012, it's written here also, the premium maximum is 20%. Suppose the capital sum assured is given as that 1 lakh for a particular policy and the policy is issued before 2012. So the maximum premium which would be allowed every year for that policy is 20%, that is 20,000. That is 20,000. If a policy is issued after first, I should say after 2012, then the maximum premium which is allowed is 10%. So 1st April 2012 से I should say पहले है, so you have to check 20% is the capital premium amount. If it is after 1st April 2012, it should be 10%. So now if suppose for the same policy I'm paying premium of 15,000, only 10,000 would be allowed, which is 1 lakh ka 10%. Capital assured ka 10%. But yes, if we are talking about a person with any disability or specified disease, for them, the premium capping is 15%, and that too for a policy which is issued after 1st April 2013. Mostly a question comes as a checkpoint of this for a policy which is issued after 1st April 2012. Then you have to make sure that 10% only would be allowed. This is very important and this is a checkpoint at particular level of yours. And obviously 115 BAC means nothing of ATC is required. Wherever the deduction would be eligible under section 115 BAC, I will clearly indicate. Next is deferred annuities. Annuities is something which you get in return after a certain period of time. You're putting premium for them so that you get a return. It is allowed. Common one which comes under a particular section of ATC is LIC, annuity plans, ULIPs, SPF, PPF, RPF. All of this from the point of view of the SSC. So if I'm talking about SPF and RPF, whatever they have been contributing into the Provident Fund during the year as an employee. As an employer, there is no deduction particularly. It's treated as income deemed to be received if a certain amount exceeds, that is, if the contributant exceeds 12% for RPF. But from the employee standpoint, when I am making contribution to fund which is in my name, which is statutory provident fund or recognized provident fund, I'll get the deduction during the year. If I'm not an employee, or suppose I'm an employee but my organization does not have provident fund, then I can make a contribution into public provident fund and I will get the deduction. Not only a contribution for a public provident fund for myself, I can open the PPF in the name of myself, spouse, in the name of my spouse and children also. Approved superannuation fund also from the standpoint of view of the assessee, you have to take care of Sukanya Samriddhi account. So I will open a Sukanya Samriddhi account not for myself but for my daughter. So if I open the Sukanya Samriddhi account for my daughter, I'll get the deduction in this. Whatever contribution which I'm making during the year for that girl child would be allowed as deduction. Now there is an exemption also, whatever comes from that particular account, which is given under section 10, 11, clause 11. National saving certificates. So government issues saving certificates with a lock-in period of certainly 5 years. So if you make a contribution into it, you'll get a deduction for it. So if you will see, guys, all these particular contributions which are available, or the options, or the investment options, or the payment options which are available, are mostly for the ultimate benefit of the assessee, retirement benefits, or a security future of the assessee. So that's why the government wants to initiate a habit so that you make a contributions into this and your future is secure. Common one again, SPF, PPF, RPF, LIC, ULIPs, and National Savings Certificate, Senior Citizen Savings Scheme account, notified mutual funds, ELS types, NABARD, K bonds. If you're making an investment, you'll get a deduction. Then, most important, tuition fees. Tuition fees. So there is children education allowance, which has nothing to do with this. This is tuition fees. Children education allowance is when your employer is giving you a certain allowance for the education. That is different. Now, this is tuition fees. Now, this is not tuition fees which you go after school. Tuition fees is a component which is basically when your children are studying in any university, school, or college in India, and they are into a full-time education like class 12, nursery, or anything, and you are paying the fees for that particular education. And in that particular education, whenever you get a slip, you will see there are certain components of the fees. There are components for extracurricular activities, development fund, in-house activities, and then there is a main component which is for the padai, which is for the tuition, which is for the education. So that tuition fees component is allowed to you. A question can come to you which can have a pay slip. Honestly, if a practical question you see, or whenever you are on a client visit, so if they give you a pay slip, then you have to see from that pay slip of the school what is the tuition fees component that you have to allow. Only for maximum 2 children, this particular tuition fees is allowed. Then, apart from that, the common one is housing loan repayment. Now, this question particularly can come very carefully where you have been given the EMIs or the loan amount, okay? And then you have given the principal amount and the interest amount paid during the year. Now, the interest amount you obviously consider under section 24, clause B. If you are the property owner, you understand interest under section 24, clause B is allowed. But the principal component, students, you will consider under section 80C. That to the extent of 1,50,000. To the extent of 1,50,000. Interesting part is that when you take interest under section 24B ka deduction, the loan can be taken from anyone. The important point is that you should have a PAN of the borrower and a certificate. But when I talk about from the principal point of view, the loan has to be taken from any bank, financial institutions, or not NBFCs. Then only you get the deduction. I cannot take a loan from my relatives and get a principal deduction under section 80C, but I can take a loan, a housing loan from my relative and get an interest deduction under section 24, clause B. Got it? Apart from it, registration fees, stamp duty fees, which you pay when you're purchasing the house, that is also allowed as deduction. Equity shares and debentures, ELSs, certain units, mutual funds. This you can give a quick read. Another important one is FD, 5 years FD. If you get it done from any of the bank or post office, you'll get the deduction under section 80C. So very commonly, if I have to specifically tell, 5-year post office time deposit covered here, senior citizen savings scheme covered here, contribution to initial account of NPS. Now, generally, NPS ka, there are two types of account, tier 1, tier 2. So when you make a contribution to tier 1, which is mandatory, it goes under the section 80CCD, which will be covering up. When you make a voluntary contribution, extra contribution, it goes to tier 2. That is allowed here under your 80C. So if I have to quickly revise, what are the options here? LIC premium. LIC premium, you have to check the premium versus capital sum assured. Provident fund, employee contribution to SPF, RPF, and your statutory SAF, superannuation fund. Amount invested in National Savings Certificate, principal repayment, tuition fees, FD more than 5 years, notified pension scheme, stamp duty registrations, ULIPs, NABARD, senior citizen savings scheme, Sukanya Samriddhi account, and NPS tier 2. And this is only for central government employees. Apart from this, under section 80C, you have to remember certain lock-in periods are there. Lock-in period is that you have to make either the minimum contribution for so period or you should hold that particular investment. So the lock-in period, quickly I'll write on your right. And I'm saying again, this is a quick revision section because we have so many sections to cover up. So in case you have any confusion, please let me know. Okay, so lock-in period LIC के लिए you have LIC life insurance premium should be paid for at least 2 years to get the deduction. ULIPs के लिए there is 5 years. House property for which we are taking the repayment deduction, principal amount deduction should not be transferred before 5 years. FD senior citizen savings scheme 5 years. These are the lock-in periods. So if in case, suppose I'm making an insurance premium deduction, I made an insurance premium payment today in this particular year, I will claim the deduction in this particular year. And next year also I have to pay the insurance premium to claim the deduction. If I do not pay the insurance premium next year, so whatever deduction I've claimed this year would be reversed and be treated as income for that particular year. So these points you have to remember, and this is all about ATC in a very quick recap. Okay. Any question, please shoot. So deferred annuities are also plans which the insurance companies forward was asked this question. Yeah. Sangeeta. So in case I will make premiums today, I get annuity. Annuity as in thoda amount as return in the future. Does anyone has any doubt? Kiran, Pooja, is it all clear? Okay, so we'll move ahead to next section, which is 80CCC. So 80CCC is also another section which gives a deduction of maximum to 1,50,000. Now this section is very less explored because of the limit which is already constrained in ATC. You will see there is a combined limit under section 80E for ATC, 80CCC and 80CCD subsection 1, which will be coming up. So 80CCC is basically when you make LIC specific insurance plan, annuity plans में contribution, pension funds, LIC, especially if you make a contribution in them, you get a deduction under section 80CCC for 1,50,000. Very leastly used, but if any pension fund of LIC comes, remember that it is 80CCC which we are talking about. Now we come to 80CCD, which is very important. Let me just quickly make a chart here. ATCCD. And why this particular section is important? Because this section has been introduced in a phased manner. First, it was for central government, then state governments, and now it is for everyone. Pension. See, one of the most important source of income post-retirement is pension. And government wants everyone to be independent enough to have their certain funds accumulated either through provident fund or getting certain amount back every month in forms of pension. Now, pension was something which was very attractive when I talk about government employees because they're assured of it. But to make it a dream for everyone to come true, government has opened a national pension scheme or a notified pension scheme, which is also Atal Pension Yojana. So if a question comes on Atal Pension Yojana, it is about NPS. It is about NPS. It can be written as Atal Pension Yojana or a notified pension scheme. So you do not have to confuse yourself. It is about ATCCD. Now, ATCCD may, there can be a scenario where your employer and employee both are contributing. That is, you're a salaried employee, and as a salaried employee, you have asked your employer also to make a matching contribution, or as a non-salaried employee or a salaried employee who does not have an NPS account, you're making a self contribution. So there can be both the scenario. Either I can be contributing with my employer in it, so we'll make a matching contribution, or I can make a self contribution. So we'll cover both scenarios if I'm making the contribution from my employer perspective. Then there are three sections in which you get a deduction: ATCCD subsection 1, ATCCD subsection 2 or 1B, and ATCCD subsection 2. But when you're making a self contribution, that is, no one else is contributing, there's no employer role here. I myself am making a contribution. Then there are two sections in which I can claim a deduction: ATCCD subsection 1 and ATCCD subsection 1B. So that is clear that ATCCD subsection 2 is for when an employer is making a contribution. When an employer is making a contribution, then the deduction for it comes under ATCCD subsection 2. So let's just pick it here because this particular section is allowed under section 115 BAC also. So before digging deep into 1 and 1B, let's understand subsection 2. So ATCCD subsection 2 is allowed only when my employer is making the contribution, only when my employer is making the contribution. When my employer makes a contribution to national pension scheme, first step is to treat it as salary, as perquisite when computing salary income. So whatever employer contribution has been made during the year, suppose he has made a contribution of 3 lakhs during the year. So 3 lakhs would be treated as perquisite in my salary. Got it? Exactly whatever contribution has been made. Second step is to remember that this particular contribution is eligible for deduction under section ATCCD subsection 2. So if whatever is the contribution would be allowed as deduction, definitely subject to 10% of salary or 14% of salary in case of central government or state government employees. So suppose whatever is the actual contribution, either that would be allowed as deduction or 10% of salary, that would be allowed as deduction. Now suppose my actual salary, now which is that salary? Same salary of basic plus DNS allowance of retirement benefits plus percentage based commission, that part. Okay. So that same salary is to be considered. Suppose that salary is, say, roughly 40 lakhs. So 10% of 40 lakhs is 4 lakhs, but the actual contribution is 3 lakhs made during the year. What would be allowed as deduction? 3 lakh would be allowed as deduction under section ATCCD 2. Now, suppose this was not 40 but 25 lakhs. So 10% of salary would have come to 2,50,000. So 2,50,000 would be allowed as deduction under section ATCCD 2 for the employer contribution. For the employer contribution. Simple? Yes. Now, what about the employee contribution? Now, employee contribution is a sort of cash outflow investment which I am making, right? So now you have to think yourself as an assessee. The first section, which is ATCCD subsection 1, allows a deduction against similar to actual contribution or 10% of salary. Now, when or 10% of salary. Now, the problem here is whichever is lower. You will say, ma'am, you told that, okay, this is makes sense 10% of salary when we're talking about salaried employee. What would be for an employee who does not have a salary income what would be the deduction allowed to him? ATCCD subsection 1. It would be actual contribution or 20% of gross total income. Now the question is why 20%, ma'am? यहाँ पे तो वहाँ पे 10% of salary है, यहाँ 20% है. 20% is that the reason because यहाँ पे for an employee who is working and his employer is also contributing, he's getting 10% ATCCD 1 also and ATCCD 2 also. But when a person who is not working, he's only getting ATCCD 1. That's why 20% limit is given to him. So actual contribution of 20% of GTI, whichever is lower. Now suppose in the same question, the same part, salary remains the same. Actual contribution was also 3 lakh and 10% of salary comes to 4 lakh. So you will say the deduction under section 80 1 would be 3 lakh. I said okay because actual contribution of 10% of salary. But now the problem is, friends, that 80 1 gets combined in a section called, very importantly, 80 CCE, which is a section which says that in aggregate, 80C plus 80CCC plus 80CCD subsection 1 in aggregate cannot have a deduction of more than 1,50,000. So even if sadly 80C has 1,50,000 limit, 80CCC has 1,50,000 limit, and 80CCD1 has actual contribution of 10% of salary, you have to pick up all 150 यहाँ पे, 150 यहाँ पे, 150 यहाँ पे, but all of them combined cannot cross 1,50,000. So all of them combined cannot cross 1,50,000. So what you will do first, you'll see 80C का 150 तक restrict हो रहा है, you restrict it. 80CCC का 150 तक restrict it. 80CCD1 का actual contribution of 10% of salary you will restrict it. Now you will come to a stage where you will combine all of them and you will not cross it 1,50,000. Okay. So you will not cross 1,50,000. So पहले सबका respective limit you will check and then you will make it a big check under section 80CCE. So now the thing which was happening was because of 80CCE, which was already playing restriction and people already had contributions of 80C, they were not very induced to make investment under section 80CCD subsection 1. Why they were not very happy to make investment under 80CCD subsection 1? Because they already had their pocket or this 1,50,000 ka limit full because of 80C already going on. The government said, okay, we understand your problem, and to increase the investments under NPS, they came up with a solution which is additional deduction of 50,000. Additional deduction of 50,000, which is allowed for actual contribution of the assessee. Which is allowed for actual contribution of the assessee. So now, if I am making an actual contribution of 3 lakh, first I will claim 50,000 optimally. I'll claim 50,000 under 80CCD subsection 1B. Now, kitna contribution 3 lakh में से I have already claimed 50,000 under 1B. How much is left? 250 is left. Now 250 and 10% of salary I'll compare, whichever is lower would be eligible for 80CCD 1. Then I will compare it with 80CCE along under section 80CCE along with 80C and 80CCC. So step 1 is whenever you're making a contribution to NPS, first quickly go and grab 80CCD 1B. Then whatever actual contribution is left, compare it either with your salary. If you are an employee and employer is making contribution, or compare it with 20% of GTI, whichever is lower, pick it. That is your 80CCD 1. And then you combine it with 80C and 80CCC. Most of the people say first 1 and 1B. No, actually, it's 1B and 1. Again, this is an optimal situation. No one is saying that you have to claim 80CCD 1B. This is the best possible situation. You want to claim everything in ATCCD subsection 1, go claim it. No one is stopping you. But the best approach is to first go under ATCCD 1B and then go with the remaining contribution under ATCCD subsection 1. And ATCCD 2 is standalone. It is different. It is when you have an employer, you quickly give it a reduction under ATCCD subsection 2. Remember, it is also given for 115 BSc employees. Quickly go through it once and just let me know if there is any confusion. Take a minute. This is on your screen also. Give a quick read. And if there is any confusion, I'll pick up the doubts. ATCCD 1B and is for employee contribution. Shikala, it is for, I'll say, assessee contribution, whether as an employee or whether as a self person, you will get 50,000. Whatever contribution I am making to the fund, I'll get 50,000. Uske baad, whatever actual contribution is remaining, I will compare it for the limits under section ATCCD subsection 1, and then I will claim it. 1B is for everyone. Unit linked insurance plan, Preeti. Yes, you can say maximum reduction can be 2 lakhs for NPS if there is no ATC and ATCCE, ATCCC, then you can say maximum reduction is 1 lakh 50 plus 50. In the new scheme, ATCCD subsection 2, which is employer contribution, that is allowed. SSC's contribution is not allowed. Employer's contribution and reduction is allowed. अगर SSCC actual contribution से ज़्यादा deduction पूजा never would be allowed. If actual contribution is only 30,000, you claim it all of it under section ATCCD subsection 1B. Okay, let's proceed. Perfect. Okay. Next, which you have is ATCCH. Now, this is a very latest one which is introduced, and this question can come because it's the latest one. This is only for individual. Now, there is contribution to Agniveer Corpus Fund. So the government introduced an Agniveer scheme where young champ that is from the age of 17 to 21 can enroll under the scheme, and they can get trained for a few years under army, any of the three army verticals. And then 25% of them are retained in the army, and others are given options to work in government jobs. So it's basically a scheme whereby a person can, in his early age, dedicate his well-being, health, fitness to the betterment of the India, and then most of them can secure a job in that particular field, or others would be at least relatively disciplined enough to take up their own lives. So now, in the period when they are Agniveer, that is Agniveer, when they are enrolled between the age of 17 to 21, and they are in the that particular period, they are called Agniveers, those who enroll under the Agniveer schemes. Now, under when a person is enrolled as Agniveer, that is, if suppose I am an Agniveer, I will get a certain amount, but 30% of which will go to an Agniveer Corpus Fund. 30% of which would go into Agniveer Corpus Fund every month or whatever, if whatever the payment is. So 30% will go to the Agniveer Corpus Fund. Now, this amount which is going to the Agniveer Corpus Fund is allowed as deduction under Section 80 CCH subsection 1. And the central government also makes a contribution to this particular fund. The contribution which central government is making on my behalf for betterment of me, which I will get at a certain age, that contribution is first treated as salary and is allowed as deduction under section 80 CCH subsection 2. Here there is no comparison between 10% of salary or actual contribution. No, simple. 30% generally goes as contribution from the Agreement Corpus Fund from the individual's point of view. That is allowed as deduction under section 80 CCH subsection 1. And the central government contribution which they are making for me is first treated as salary and is allowed as deduction under section 80 CCH subsection 2, and this is also allowed for 115 BSc people who are paying tax as per 115 BSc. Okay, CCH subsection 1 and CCH subsection 2. Something similar to what we did in NPS, but that is where there is a contribution deductions and comparison. यहाँ पे simple है. Agniveer Corpus Fund में whatever contribution you are making, you will get a deduction under CCH subsection 1. But it is not for all scheme employees. It is only for the old scheme employees, old scheme people. But whatever the central government is making the contribution, first is treated as salary, and then the entire contribution gets deductible under 80 CCH subsection 2. This is also allowed for 115 BSc people. Okay. Next, we move forward. Go through it once quickly. Yes, Sangeeta, 80 CCD subsection 1 and 80 CCD 1B would only be given to employees who or to SSEs who are opted out of from the new scheme. That is, they are paying tax as per the old scheme. Next, we move on to a very, very, very important section, 80D. Ritika, there is no limit under 80 CCH subsection 2 and also CCH subsection 1. 30% whatever is going as contribution is allowed as deduction. 115 BAC के लिए मिलेगा. Correct seat color, it would be allowed. Whatever, see, whenever an employer is making contribution and you are treating it as salary, that is allowed as deduction first for NPS under 80 CCD subsection 2. And when I talk about from Agniveer perspectives, then under 80 CCH subsection 2. And both are allowed for your people who are paying tax as per new or old any scheme. Sorted? थोड़ा फास्ट हो रहा है नो बट a lot of sections to cover. कहीं पे भी confusion हो, please stop it then and there, guys. Okay. So now we move on to a very important section, which is ATB. This most of the people have an idea that this is for medical insurance. Life insurance premium you pay, you get under 80C. Medical insurance premium you pay is under 80D. Now, what is the difference between medical insurance premium and life insurance premium? See, medical insurance premium is when you cover the health expenses or health treatment or medical expenses through insurance. That is medical insurance premium. When you cover the life, that is your life insurance premium. That is under 80C. Now, 80D में there are two tranches. अपने आप को I'm considering individual. See, individual and HF both get the reduction under 80C. But first, I'll talk about from the individual perspective. So, individual, that is the SSC, can claim deduction under two parts. Two parts मतलब ऐसे D1 and D2 नहीं है, but दो parts है, दो tranches है. One, when he's making the premium payments or the expense for himself, spouse, and dependent children. And dependent children. And secondly, when he's making that particular insurance premium खर्चा for the parents. ठीक है ये इसमें allowed हो गया अब what type of deductions would be allowed, what type of expenditures are allowed. First, medical premium which I pay. Whatever medical premium which I will pay, I will get the deduction for myself and for my parents. Both have, I'll come to it about the limit. Okay? The premium which I'm paying during the year for covering the medical insurance expense. Second, if I am into central government and I am enrolled under central government health scheme, so I make a small contribution every year for getting myself enrolled under central government health scheme. So uska contribution is also allowed here. That is not for parents, that is not allowed. Parents are not covered under central government health scheme. Preventive health checkup. Preventive health checkup क्या है? See, medical treatment is when you get admitted and then there is maybe some, God forbid, there is a problem or anything, and then the whatever the medical treatment expenses are covered by insurance. But it's not necessary that person should fall ill for medical treatment. There can be during the year certain preventive health diagnosis. Preventive health diagnosis may be medicines, maybe blood tests, maybe doctor visits, small things which require a small attention and prevents any further health treatments, correct? So that is also allowed. So suppose I am taking medicines, that is also allowed to claim as deduction under ATD. But that has a limit. Preventive health checkup for myself or my parents. Now, coming to the limits. I'll come to the preventive health checkup ka limit also. First of all, the limit is 25,000 and 25,000. That is when I'm doing all these kharcha for myself, spouse, dependent children, I can claim 25,000 as deduction in total in at max. When I'm making these kharcha for my parents, 25,000. So you can say 50,000 is allowed maximum. Correct. But when I talk about other things you have to remember is that these should be strictly non-cash. But preventive health checkup in cash is also allowed because iska bhi limited. Secondly, preventive health checkup has a maximum limit of 5,000. Mine and parents combined, Maximum 5,000. So out of 50,000, maximum I can claim is 5,000 under preventive health checkup, not 10. 5 भी नहीं है, 5,000 under preventive health checkup. Cash, non-cash does not matter. Third thing now is, if any of a person in either this category or this category is a senior citizen, resident senior citizen, that is 60 years of plus. That is 60 years of plus. This limit of 25 gets increased by another 25. Now, suppose I am paying premium for my parents, and one of my parent is 60 plus. One of my parent is 60 plus. Then I will get a deduction. Maximum is 50,000 for my parents and 25,000 for myself. So that makes it to 75,000. That makes to 75,000. Even single parent, even one of the parent, that is suppose father is 60 and mother is 58, then also parents का जो maximum deduction का cap है, that increases to 50,000. That increases to 50,000. And suppose I am also a senior citizen, and here my parents naturally are senior citizen, then this would also be increased by 25,000. So whenever in any of the category, either of the parents category or your category, any of them is senior citizen, the bracket increases to another 25,000 each. So the maximum deduction now is 1 lakh. The maximum deduction now is 1 lakh. That is when you're also 60 plus and your parents are also 60 plus. Naturally, then maximum deduction is 1 lakh. Now, suppose I am not 60 plus, my spouse is 60 plus, then also it would be increased by 25. So, any of them in this particular category 60 plus, additional 25. Any of them in this particular category 60 or plus, 25. So, can I now sum up? Maximum deduction allowed under section 80D would be 1 lakh if individual is also senior citizen and naturally parents are senior citizen. If only parents are senior citizen, individual is not senior citizen, maximum deduction allowed would be 75,000. If neither of them are senior citizen, maximum deduction allowed would be 50,000. Yes. And 5,000 is included in this 25, 75 or 1 lakh limit. It is not excluded, okay? Within this 5,000. Now, one more thing you have to remember. I told you what are the deductions allowed? Premium, which you pay for medical insurance, central government health scheme, and preventive health checkup. Anywhere I have not mentioned that you will get the deduction for the medical treatment. Suppose the bill for the medical treatment comes to 2 lakh rupees. The insurance policy has only covered 1,80,000. Now 20,000 you will be paying from your own pocket, but 20,000 would be not allowed as deduction under section 80D. Would not be allowed as deduction under section 80D. Remember, a question can come like this, that this is the premium amount, this is the insurance coverage amount, and this is the actual hospital bill. So only the premium amount would be allowed as deduction under section 80D. Remember. But government understood that people who are of the age of 60 or more, people who are of the age of 60 or more might not get insurance coverage very easily. Unka insurance na hi ho, right? They might not have insurance cover. So then what in that case? So if any of the person in any of the category is 60 plus, senior citizen, and there is a medical treatment for them during the year on which there is a kharcha, medical treatment expenditure, plus they have no insurance. Then in that case, that kharcha would also be allowed. In general, medical treatment expenditure is not allowed. But medical treatment expenditure of a senior citizen with no insurance covered is allowed under section 80D. And that is also again covered under this 50,000 respective limits. And 50,000 here and 50,000 here. So medical treatment in general not covered, but medical treatment expenditure of a senior citizen who does not have insurance is allowed as an eligible deduction under section 80D. But remember, it should be within those 50-50 ka limit. So suppose I'll give you an example. Father इसी कैटेगरी का उठाते हैं, ठीक है? Father's insurance premium is And please, resident, the question trick can come here कि they can give you not resident father details. Then in that case, senior citizen नहीं है वो, so do not give them that 56 additional 25,000 का benefit. Okay. So suppose father insurance premium paid during the year is 30,000. Father's medical treatment expenditure over and above the insurance is, say, 30,000 or 38,000. Mother's medical treatment is 35,000. She does not have insurance. Okay. Now, in this case, what is the maximum deduction allowed? First of all, you have to see what are the eligible expenditure allowed. Eligible expenditure is one, this father insurance premium allowed. Father's medical treatment not to be considered because he has an insurance. He has an insurance, so this is not to be considered. Mother's medical treatment has to be considered because she does not have an insurance. Total comes to 65K, but it is restricted to 50,000. So deduction allowed is 50,000 under section 80D. But first you have to pick what all the eligible expenditures are, and then you have to restrict it to 50,000. पहले हमेशा write the list of eligible expenditure and then or eligible payments or eligible investment, and then write or then compare it with the ceiling limit or the capping limit. Okay, so this is about 80D. For your HUF, a deduction is allowed, maximum 25,000 if no member is senior citizen, otherwise 50,000 if any one member is senior citizen. It is also allowed for your same insurance premium and preventive health check. Sorry, only for insurance premium, no preventive health checkup also. Quickly go through it and ask your questions. This is 80D, which we just cover. This is also very common. 80C and 80D definitely would be a part of your full-fledged question. Definitely. So please pay attention on that. Take a moment. So I have a question coming in. Insurance is less than hospital remaining would never be allowed under ATD. No medical treatment expenditure is allowed if you have insurance. If there is a senior who has medical insurance and also has medical treatment, only insurance premium would be allowed, just like in the case of father, which we picked up. But yeah, see, one senior has insurance, another senior citizen, the parents, may one parent has insurance, another parent does not have an insurance. The parent who has insurance, unka only medical insurance premium, and the other parent who does not have the insurance, unka medical expenditure. Got it, Ritika? ATD deduction is allowed to non-dependent parents also. Correct. Malappa, better option for employees means the employee will definitely get, if employer is making a contribution, 80 CCD 2 definitely would be there, and CCD 1 and 1B would be there. Children can be of any age, but yes, children should be dependent. Technically, 30, 40 years wale are not dependent, but yes, dependent children is very important. Uh, this reminds me that whenever see, this is the chart which is here, definitely very good. Uh, Post the reductions which are covered, let me give you a pro tip. Make a small chart where the family meanings are different. Now, in ATC, dependent children is not there, it's only written children. Okay, in ATD, the condition is dependent children. Then in ATE, all what type of family members are covered under each section? Just make a quick chart for it. Okay, so it would be very easy for you to remember and give a quick, thorough review also. Who are all the relatives under which particular sections? ATD may who is the relative, ATE may who is basically for whom I as an individual can do the expenditure and I will get the deduction. This is a small tip. एक जगह लिखोगे, it would be very easy for you to remember. Okay, now let's get back to the track. Now we move on to another two sections, ATDD, DDB. How do I remember DD? Dependent disability. And DDB is for medical treatment of specified diseases. दोनों interrelated तो नहीं है, but let me just quickly go through it and this can be done in the next 5 minutes. Okay. So next, which we are covering, an ATDD, ATU, and ATDDP. ATU first, I'll tell you. Again, before I proceed, I'll apologize for using the word disabled. People say, please use ma'am special ability. With full respect and due respect to all of them, the act says to use the word disability, so I'm using that. Okay. So ATU is a deduction which is given to a SSC who is handicapped or has a disability. Okay. So this is a flat deduction which is given to them. Sorry. ATU is a flat deduction. So if any individual is handicapped, 75,000 ka deduction is given under section ATU. Or if a person is with severe disability, deduction is of 1,25,000. Severe disability means 80% or more part is disabled or the body is disabled, then 1,25,000. Otherwise, 75,000. This is not related to expenditure. This is just in general given to a person with disability under section ATU. Now, ATDD is another section which talks about disability, but it talks about dependent disability. That means from an individual perspective, person is dependent on that individual and is disabled. This is for deduction for medical treatment, maintaining any dependent relative who is disabled. SSE is not disabled. If SSE is disabled, there is ATU. SSE's relative is disabled who is dependent. Who is dependent? Okay, so dependent, disabled, or disabled, dependent. Again, here the deduction is flat deduction. That means there is no deduction based on actual expenditure. If an SSE is maintaining a dependent disabled and is taking care of his maintenance, treatment, insurance, etc., he will get a flat deduction of 75,000 or 1,25,000. There is no actual expenditure criteria. What are you actually spending? But yes, you have to ensure that you are the one who is maintaining that particular relative. Who would can be a relative? Your spouse, brother, sister, children, or mother, father. So in addition to the sections, brother, sisters are now covered here. Apart from that, if you're maintaining someone, ATDDD is not for you. Dependent relative is there who is disabled. The individual is spending upon medical treatment, maintenance, insurance, this would be allowed. This is for individual also and for HUF also. So HUF also can claim this particular deduction. Okay. But remember, if you are claiming the deduction or if the individual is claiming the deduction, then in that case, the person that is the relative should not claim ATU, should not claim ATU. So, for example, X is maintaining his brother Y. Y, who is a disabled, X is taking care of him. So, there are option one. Either X can claim deduction under section 80DD for 75,000. Now, suppose Y is not severely disabled, normal disabled. Or option two, Y can claim in his return of income, ATU, for 75,000. But both cannot claim that here Y in his return is claiming 75,000 and here X is in his return claiming 75,000. Either of them can claim the deduction. So either the disabled himself will claim deduction under ATU, or the dependent, the person who's maintaining the dependent would claim the deduction under ATDD. So I'll repeat again, ATU is a deduction which is given to an assessee who is disabled, 75,000 flat or 1,25,000 depending upon the disability. If severely disabled, 1,25,000. On the other hand, if a person, that is the assessee, is maintaining, yes, this is for you, if an assessee is maintaining a dependent relative who is disabled, then ATDD is there. Same, irrespective of actual expenditure, 75,000 is given as deduction, or the person who is being maintained is severely disabled, 1,25,000 is given as deduction. You have to ensure that by keeping a certificate that you are making those certain expenditures for him or her on the ground of medical treatment, or even not medical treatment, nursing, maintaining the child, maintaining the relative, taking up his insurances and all that stuff, you will get the deduction. Or the assessee would get the deduction, but make sure that the dependent disabled is not claiming the deduction in his respective return. So only two of the one option can be claimed. Either the dependent disabled claim ATU, or the person maintaining the dependent disabled claim ATDD. Sorted? Yes, is it clear? Perfect. Sangeeta, yes, if preventive health checkup is 10,000, only 5,000 is allowed as deduction. Balance taxable? नहीं taxable क्यों होगा? Expenditure है, taxable क्यों होगा? Income taxable होती है, expenditure नहीं taxable होता. Reimbursement of medical expenditure received from employer is not taxable. See, medical expenditure, they will reimburse only basically if you have to check it the salary provisions. First of all, insurance hoga, so obviously they'll not give you reimbursement. But if they're giving you reimbursement, then you have to see this particular section which is under salary, which says if the employee is paying for the medical treatment in the hospital which is maintained by the employer himself, no taxability. If the employer is paying for certain medical treatments, no taxability, no perquisite, but otherwise reimbursements are taxable. But that has nothing to do with your ATC to ATU. It is perquisite under section 17. Another section which I have seen very less comes in exam is ATDD B, which is for specified diseases or ailments. Now, here, if you will go to the rules of ATDDB, you'll get the list of whatever diseases are covered here and whatever specified ailments or treatments are covered here. So, if the assessee himself or for his dependent has to be spouse, children, parents, brother, sister, give or does the expenditure for specified diseases, the deduction is allowed. The deduction is allowed. Now, the deduction is actual treatment based or 40,000, whichever is lower, whichever is lower. Suppose actual treatment is 10,000, then you'll get a deduction of 10,000. Actual treatment is say 60,000, you'll get the deduction of 40,000. Actual treatment or 40,000, whichever is lower. But if the treatment is done for a senior citizen, the comparison comes as actual treatment expenditure or your 1 lakh, whichever is lower, or your 1 lakh, whichever is lower. Very less, I've seen a question coming from 80DDB. Now we are paying premium and getting deduction, but when we get lump sum amount from this insurance plans, that amount is taxable. Ritika, first of all, medical insurance say you will not get lump sum amount. Lump sum amounts are covered sometimes in your term insurance or life insurances. Those are covered or not covered are subject to the taxability of section 10. If you see the premiums are within the limit, then it is not taxable like that. It has to be. That is again nothing to do with 80C to 80U. Medical insurance से कभी भी you will not get your lump sums or anything. वो coverage of treatment expenditure होगा. But life insurance से when you will get some lump sum etc. For that you have to see your section 10 clause 10D. Okay. So next, last we do 80E, then we'll take a quick break and we'll come back and move forward with 80EE onwards. Okay. Hmm. So 80E is now interest on loan for higher education. मतलब आपने लोन लिया education के लिए, higher education के लिए, और अब now you're paying the interest on it. Now, first of all, higher education means any education after class 12. After class 12, tuition fees के लिए था, full time education, school fees, nursery fees, anything was allowed. But this is for higher education after 12, in or outside India, does not matter. In or outside India, उसको sponsor करने के लिए you took a loan and loan का interest would be allowed as deduction under section 80E. Now, first of all, education किसका? Ma'am, assessee का? Not necessary. It can be of the assessee himself, of the spouse of the assessee, or of the children of the assessee, for whom he is the legal guardian. So once the interest payment of this education loan starts, you can claim the deduction, but maximum deduction, see, there is no amount here. No amount. Whatever is the interest, you can claim the deduction. Interest is 2 lakhs, claim in 2 lakhs. Interest is 3 lakhs, claim 3 lakhs. Not a problem under 80. But what is the checkpoint here is that maximum interest deduction would be allowed would be for 8 assessment years. 8 assessment years. जिस साल से interest payment किया उस साल से that year plus 7 years. So makes it 8 assessment years के लिए deduction would be allowed. Loan has to be taken from any bank, any financial institutions or approved charitable institutions, not from anywhere and everywhere. Okay, that's it. इसमें और कोई point ही नहीं. ठीक है? There is no limit, nothing. Yes, 80DD includes medical insurance, expenses, maintenance charges, everything. But Ritika, deduction is flat irrespective of actual expenditure. I have to just give a proof that I was doing kharcha for a dependent disabled. That's it. So 80E is very simple question. कैसे पता चलेगा 80E has to be seen. Education loan जहाँ पे trigger हुआ, you saw the interest, you have to claim 80E. So this will take a quick break. We'll come back to 80EE onwards, which are also interest on loan sections. And then we'll proceed with our remaining sections of the deductions. Thank you. So a quick break, please. So, welcome back after the break. I hope everyone is energetic again. And now we are back to the new sections. No, Yash, you cannot claim ATE for a same loan for that particular same education for more than 8 years. You cannot fool the income tax department in that case. And generally, education loans are not for such higher period also. Okay. And next is deemed income का case में in case of deemed income under insurance ATD ठीक है वो वाला part I think I skipped 1 second. Mhm. Question is in case of deemed income under ATDD if the SSC pays premium after 60 years of his age then it is allowed as deduction. See, generally all these premiums seed color are mm, up to the age of 60 because after the age of 60 or after the age of retirement, basically the payback period starts. So generally premiums are not allowed. Yeah, but you can show that if you're maintaining the person still, then the deduction will be given to you for maintaining. And the premiums which you would be getting back would be taxable if you are receiving, if the dependent is receiving, would depend upon his age. Okay. Mohammed, regarding which particular section? Just give me a more clarity on which section you're asking about, ATD, DDB, or DD. So there are two sections regarding interest on property, surprisingly, interest on housing loan, which was done or introduced to give the boost to the housing sector. These were introduced back almost 7, 8 years back, and there are two sections, ATEE and ATEE-A. Both have certain similar conditions, but both are different in their respect. So we'll first do both of them, and then we'll see what are the comparison which we can draw out of it. Okay. First is your ATEE. Now, ATEE has conditions like this is also for deduction on interest on loan borrowed from any financial institutions, bank, NBFCs for acquisition of residential house property. So if you are acquiring a residential house property, you can claim the interest deduction under ATEE. Now, the moment I say interest deduction in respect to house, obviously under section 24, the same thing strikes to you. But first, let us understand what are the conditions here, and then we'll draw a comparison out of it. Okay. So the conditions here are one, maximum deduction allowed is 50,000. Maximum deduction allowed is 50,000. And the conditions to claim these particular deductions is first, the loan should be sanctioned. Sanctioned word is important. Remember, whenever the loan is a process is there's a process of applying, checking, confirming, approval, sanction, and dismissal. So the sanction and the disbursement. Okay. So the sanction date has to be between previous year 16, 17. Loan should be less than 35 lakhs. Value of house should be less than equal to 50 lakhs. And the assessee should not own any residential house on the date of sanction of loan. That means first time property buyer के लिए ATEE was introduced so that they can be very excited. So because they would be getting an additional deduction of 50,000. Would be getting an additional deduction of 50,000. Resident, non-resident does not matter. Now, there is a corresponding section because the loan, the period for which this particular scheme was introduced, yes, value means stamp duty value, correct. The period for the scheme which was introduced here was very less, 16, 17 only. अब आप बोलोगे मैम why are we still studying it in year 2024? Because obviously the house property loans are not for smaller period. They are for 10 years, 20 years period. So it is a possibility a question can come to you and the loan of that person is still going in this particular section, and then you can claim the deduction here. Now, there is another corresponding section which is 80EEA. Now, what does EEA says? It says, this is also when people said that the scheme was interesting, which you introduced under 80EE, it was for a very less period. We are not happy with it. So they reintroduced the scheme. And the section which was introduced was 80EEA. It is also the same section which gives a deduction on interest on loan, house loan taken from bank, financial institutions, etc. But now the conditions are a bit more better. The reduction was a quite higher amount. It was 1,50,000. वहाँ पे deduction was only 50,000. Here, the deduction was 1,50,000. Now, the conditions here are the scheme for which it was introduced for a longer period scheme, April 19 to 31st March 2022. If you are taking any loan and getting it sanctioned, stamp duty value of the house was restricted to 45 lakhs. Earlier, actually, 80EE does not talk about the stamp duty value. They use the term house value. So it can be interpreted, but better is to stay on the stamp duty terms. The individual should not have any other house and the individual should not be eligible to claim deduction under 80EE. Simple. So now this was reintroduced with a better deduction section, Now the question which might be striking to you is, okay, ma'am, we got the difference. One is for period when the loan is sanctioned between 16, 17. Another is for a period when the loan is sanctioned between 1st April 19 to 31st March 2022. One has a limit with respect to loan also and house also, but the other one has only the limit with respect to house. We understand, otherwise all conditions are same, and here the reduction is 50,000, here the reduction is 1,50,000. So naturally overlapping might not happen because it clearly says the person should not have taken the benefit of 80EE, and it also clearly says the person should not have any other house on the date of sanction of loan. But ma'am, one more thing is important here is, which we are constantly striking, is section 24. How would a person use the betterment of it? See, section 24 may maximum interest, if I talk about a self-occupied property, is 2 lakhs. So I will suggest first you claim that 2 lakhs of the interest which is allowed to you. Then you claim 80E or 80EA respectively. Okay. Do not first claim, see, interest should be same. The same interest cannot be claimed under both sections. That means 40,000, suppose I'm just paying the interest, 40,000 I will claim under 24B also and 80EE also. No. Same interest, matlab, a part of the interest which is claimed under 24B cannot be claimed under 80EE because that is the same. The same amount cannot be taken as benefit twice, right? But yeah, suppose the interest is say 2,50,000 or 2,80,000 and I'm having a self-occupied property. So first I'll claim 2 lakh under my 24B, and then I will claim 80,000 in respective section of 80EE restricted to 50,000 or 80EEA. Now you say, ma'am, why so? See, 2 lakh wahan pe claim karoge. Even if you do not have sufficient income, it would be carry forwarded. It will not get lapsed. But here, if you're claiming under section 80E or 80EEA, the maximum reduction is allowed only to the extent of gross total income. The interest would get lapsed if they cannot be carried forwarded, right? If there is no sufficient income. So better to first claim all the benefit under section 24. Now, if you say, ma'am, okay, what if we have a let out property? I will say claim everything. If you have sufficient income, claim it under 80E or 80EEA. Otherwise, claim everything under your interest, which is given under section 24. Why? Because for a let out property, there is no limit. There is no limit to limit or restriction on claiming the interest. Maximum, whatever interest you claim, yes, 2 lakhs can only be used for the adjustment purposes, but otherwise it would be carried forwarded now. So you'll always have the benefit. So please be careful enough of what has to be claimed under what section to get the optimal tax benefit. This is what we call in real sense is tax planning. So please be very careful on that respective parts. It's not a flat deduction, it's the interest amount, Yash, or 50,000, whichever is lower for 80EE, or interest amount of 1,50,000, whichever is lower for 80EE. See, the context, the act says maximum deduction amount. Maximum deduction means that this is the maximum amount. If X already has two houses, he buys a new house in loan, he cannot claim 80EE. He should not own any house. Clearly, the condition Pratima is this. Interest on accrual would be allowed. So mostly a question can come to you where 80EE is getting hit and 24B is also getting hit, which I told you, see whether it's self-occupied property or whether it's a let-out property, and then make a wise choice under which section, which interest, which amount of interest has to be claimed. Got it? Now we come to another section, which was again a boost to EVs, electric vehicles, 80EEB. All the intersections start from ATE, ATEE, ATEEA, and AEEB. All these four sections are in line. Okay, so you will not get confused. Intersections ICAI line. Okay. Now ATEEB, this is again for individual, resident, non-resident, does not matter. Maximum reduction here is 1,50,000. But what is the deduction for? Deduction is respect of interest payable on loan taken from a financial institution for an electric vehicle. So to boost electric vehicles ka sale, government gave additional interest of 1,50,000. I mean, you're saving 1,50,000 cut income. So definitely you're saving a huge amount of tax. So this was a very good move to promote electric vehicle segment. But here also you have to remember the loan should be from bank, financial institutions, NBFC. Loans should be sanctioned during the period from 1st April 2019 to 31st March 2023. This is a very, very important deduction, a very, very important point. Yes, you can claim a deduction under Section 36(1), Clause 3 or 4, which is for interest, but obviously the same interest cannot be claimed as deduction twice. Electric vehicles, EEB. Yes, see, at your level, honestly, please first try to understand the provisions. Don't make it complicated. When you're saying assessee transferred the house on his wife's name and then he applied for loan, will he get the deduction? See, yes, simple thing is on the date of sanctioning the loan, not any residential house should be in his name. Simple. If he's acquired it earlier, he has transferred it, whatever is the situation, we are not talking about that. Okay? ऐसे कॉम्प्लिकेट मत करो, एडवाइजरी नहीं कर रहे हम सब, ठीक है? Mohammed, no problem. Go through the revision again. If there is any doubt, we'll take it up again. Yeah. Yaqib, so Abdan, please, I asked you earlier also, please tell me the section which you're asking for. Sangeeta, yes, higher education in courses, all professional courses, MBAs, vocational courses are also covered here. But CACS, I don't think so. Anyone takes loan. If yes, then they can take up. In each assessment year, you can claim 1,50,000 as deduction. In each assessment year, interest amount FASI or 1,50,000, whichever is lower. Ritika, see, better is to claim 24B if there is a letter of property. EEA, if you want to claim, see, again, I'm saying there is no restriction that you should do it like that. The point I'm telling is from the tax planning purpose. You want to claim 80 EA, not a problem. But see, EA tab claim karo if you have sufficient income. Suppose you have salaries income and all. Otherwise also, see, better is to claim entire amount in 24B. Reason being, the excess interest, if any, would be carry forwarded. If you have sufficient income, claim it under 80 EA. डीम्ड ओनर कॉन्सेप्ट नहीं लगेगा, आपने प्रॉपर्टी अपने नाम पे लिए प्रतिमान, देन यू विल बी अलाउड एज डिडक्शन. बेनिफिशियल ओनर, मेन लीगल ओनर होना चाहिए. अंडर विच सेक्शन अब देन? Okay. Now we move to another segment, which is regarding the deductions in respect of donations. See, abhi tak, first of all, what was happening? Ek, we were only talking about, I hope the screen is visible, right? Yeah. Let me just take it through. We were only talking about individuals HF, no matter which section we cover, whether it's ATD, DDA, E, all of them were deductions allowed for individuals HF. Abhi tak all assessees deductions to aaya hi nahi. There was no deduction which was giving a benefit to all assessees. Now is the section which is giving benefit to all assessees, which is 80G onwards. So 80G, GGB and GGC are the sections which are in respect to donations, which are respect to donations. So let's now start those particular sections, okay? Deduction in respect of donations of certain funds or charitable institution. First of all, 80G is for all assessees. There is no limit as such. Whatever donation you pay, you can claim as deduction under section 80G, but obviously subject to fulfillment of conditions. Cash donations only to the extent of 2,000 are allowed. Otherwise, all donations should be through other than cash channels, banking channels, UPI, debit card, credit card, whatever you have to pay through. Cash donations only 2,000 is allowed. Now, in this particular, this is also not allowed for 115 BAC or 115 BAA or 115 BAP. No one is allowed. Now, in this particular section of ATG, which is in general donation section, there are 4 categories. Category 1 and 2 are no condition based category, and category 3 and 4 are condition based category. इसका क्या मतलब है? So all the the person to make who you make donations, that is the donees, are covered under 4 categories. If they're eligible, they are covered under 4 categories. If they get covered under, if your donee is under category 1, then whatever donation you make, you will get 100% deduction. Suppose I've made a donation of 2 crores, I will be eligible to claim the deduction of 2 crores provided my donee is under category 1. If the donee is under category 2, whatever donation I'm making, I'll get the deduction of 50%. So suppose the donee is under category 2 and I have made a donation of 40 lakhs, I will get a deduction of 20 lakhs. Flat 50% deduction I would get. Donations are my own pocket cash outflow as an assessee. But if my donee is the person to whom I'm making the contribution or the donation is under category 3 and 4, then in that case, the deductions are subject to maximum of 10% of adjusted total income. So जितना भी मेरा income है उसका 10% निकालना है after all deductions, after all special incomes, 10% निकालना है, and then the donations would be subject to 10% or 100% contribution amount, 10% of AGTI or contribution which is there, उसका 50%. So can I say in category 3 and 4, the maximum deduction which I will get is to 10% of adjusted total income? थर्ड कैटेगरी में जो होगा, अगर जैसे टोटल इनकम 60,000 है, डोनेशन थर्ड कैटेगरी में 50,000 का हुआ है तो 50,000 डिडक्शन मिल जाएगी। अगर थर्ड कैटेगरी में एडजस्टेड टोटल इनकम इज मेरा 60,000, डोनेशन इज ऑफ 70,000, तो 60,000 डिडक्शन मिल जाएगी। ठीक है। सो मैम फोर्थ कैटेगरी क्या होगा? सबसे पहले एडजस्टेड टोटल इनकम का 10% निकालेंगे, फिर डोनेशन जो दिया वो करेंगे, उन दोनों का 50% वुड बी अलाउड एज डिडक्शन। ठीक है। whichever is lower का 50% would be allowed as deduction, but obviously after excluding third category. Now fourth category is the most common one. Most common one matlab all our charitable trust, all our religious trust, everyone is covered under category 4. Whenever you make a donation, the receipt tell you whether that eligible donation is covered under section 80G or not, or is eligible under section 80G or not. So like foundations like Give India, fundraisers, Vaishno Devi Trust, Tirupati Trust, Sai Darshan Trust, all of these are covered under category 4, because you will see they would be written, they say C is eligible person under 80G subsection 5. We will say, what is 80G subsection 5? So when you want to become an approved charitable trust, you get yourself registered under 80G subsection 5. Now, whosoever will be making donation to you under 80G as a person eligible under 80G subsection 5 will get the deduction under category 4. Now the question comes from who is under 1, who is under 2, who is under 3, and who is under 4. So government is giving you 100% donation without any restriction. That means it is into the funds in which government or national importance is the most. So now if you will see the list, which is from 1 to 24, 25, all of these list has central government or national importance criteria. अब इसका लिस्ट कैसे याद करें? बहुत सिंपल सा है, एक बार लेट्स गो थ्रू। सी ऑल द नेशनल और प्राइम मिनिस्टर फंड्स आर कवर्ड हियर। नेशनल चिल्ड्रन फंड, नेशनल फाउंडेशन फॉर कम्युनिकल हार्मनी, एक अफ्रीका वाला है, चीफ मिनिस्टर का अर्थक्वेक रिलीफ फंड हियर है, गुजरात का अर्थक्वेक रिलीफ फंड है, जिला प्रतिशत है, नेशनल ब्लड ट्रांसफ्यूजन है, स्टेट गवर्नमेंट फॉर मेडिकल रिलीफ है, कॉमन आता है आर्मी सेंट्रल वेलफेयर फंड, आंध्र प्रदेश चीफ मिनिस्टर फंड, नेशनल इलनेस असिस्टेंट फंड, चीफ मिनिस्टर रिलीफ फंड, नेशनल स्पोर्ट्स फंड, नेशनल कल्चरल फंड, नेशनल ट्रस्ट फंड फॉर ऑटिज्म, टेक्नोलॉजी फंड, क्लीन गंगा फंड, नेशनल फंड फॉर कॉन्ट्रीब्यूशन और ड्रग अब्यूज, एंड सबका फेवरेट पीएम केयर्स फंड। बट मैम हम 24 का लिस्ट कैसे याद करें? गो थ्रू इट वंस और ट्वाइस, बट इफ यू सी द लिस्ट ऑफ 50%, वहां पे एक ही प्राइम मिनिस्टर ड्रॉट रिलीफ फंड है. So any other prime minister fund, if comes, is of 100% category. Just to remember it like that. 50% category में एक ही आता है प्राइम मिनिस्टर ड्रॉट रिलीफ फंड. पहले इसमें इंदिरा गांधी फंड्स एंड राजीव गांधी फंड्स भी थे, बट नाउ दे आर आउट ऑफ स्कोप. अब 50% कैटेगरी में ओनली वन कम, विच इज प्राइम मिनिस्टर ड्रॉट रिलीफ फंड. गॉट इट? तो उसके अलावा कोई प्राइम मिनिस्टर या नेशनल फंड आ रहा है, इट इज ऑफ फर्स्ट कैटेगरी. आई होप हु आस्क्ड दिस, याकिब, क्लियर? सेकेंड पार्ट मैम, थर्ड कैटेगरी विच इज विदाउट कंडीशन, उसमें क्या क्या है? विच इज विद कंडीशन, उसमें क्या है? उसमें फैमिली प्लानिंग है और ओलंपिक है. सो प्राइम मिनिस्टर ड्रॉट रिलीफ फंड, रिमेंबर बाय हार्ट, इज सेकेंड कैटेगरी. फैमिली प्लानिंग एंड ओलंपिक रिलेटेड आर थर्ड कैटेगरी. अब उसके अलावा कोई भी नेशनल चीफ मिनिस्टर और एनी प्राइम मिनिस्टर फंड्स, एवरीथिंग इज ऑफ फर्स्ट कैटेगरी. बट आई विल स्टिल सजेस्ट एक बार गो थ्रू दैट लिस्ट वंस और ट्वाइस. ऐसे याद नहीं करना, बट एक सबकॉन्शियस माइंड में वो पढ़ के रिमेंबर हो जाएगा. ठीक है. सो प्राइम मिनिस्टर ड्रॉट रिलीफ थर्ड कैटेगरी एंड फैमिली प्लानिंग ओलंपिक, सॉरी, प्राइम मिनिस्टर ड्रॉट रिलीफ सेकंड कैटेगरी एंड फैमिली प्लानिंग एंड ओलंपिक इन थर्ड कैटेगरी. सिंपल. गॉट इट? नाउ फोर्थ कैटेगरी में ये सारे चैरिटेबल ट्रस्ट, सारे मतलब ऐसे कुछ ऐसे नेम्स नहीं है. अगर सिंपल लिखा हुआ है, कोई रिलीजियस ट्रस्ट का नाम लिखा हुआ है, इट इज फोर्थ कैटेगरी. वहां पे लिखा हुआ है इज एलिजिबल एज अ डिडक्टर और इज एलिजिबल डोनर अंडर 80G5, दैट मींस इट इज अ फोर्थ कैटेगरी फंड. अब मैम इसको करते कैसे? आई स्ट्रिक्टली पिक अप अ क्वेश्चन सो दैट you know how to do 80G5, especially the limits of third and fourth category. I'll not go detail into question because we are already short of time and I have few sections to cover. I'll quickly come to how you have to calculate the donation. Donation हमें दिया हुआ है एक National Relief Fund का first category. Drought Relief Fund, guys, second category. Remember, promotion of family planning, third category. बस ये दिया हुआ है. और कोई डोनेशन है? हाँ, एक और कैटेगरी है, डोनेशन टू पब्लिक चैरिटेबल ट्रस्ट बाय चेक, फोर्थ कैटेगरी. अब इसमें से चेक 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 को यू हैव टू चेक दैट एनी, अगर कोई भी कैश के थ्रू है, इट इज आउट ऑफ द स्कोप फॉर मोर देन 2000. अब लेट्स सी हाउ वी विल कंप्यूट द डिडक्शन अंडर एटीजी. पहले तो आई विल कंप्यूट द ग्रॉस टोटल इनकम. I will compute all the deductions under ATC, ATD, etc. Now I have to come to ATG. First of all, National Children Fund, national है 100% first category मिल गया. Drought Relief Fund 50% मिल गया. थर्ड में हमने कंट्रीब्यूशन किया थर्ड कैटेगरी में 40,000 एंड पब्लिक चैरिटेबल ट्रस्ट में 50,000. अब कैसे डिडक्शन निकलेगा? माय टोटल इनकम, adjusted total income is how much? My adjusted total income is 7,75,000 minus 150 minus 25. 775 minus 150 1 and minus 25. ठीक है, 125 हो गई, 175 हो गया. हाँ, so 6 lakhs is my adjusted total income. Is 6 lakhs. उसका 10% is 60,000. So the amount which I have to use under third and fourth category is 60,000. First of all, थर्ड कैटेगरी उठाया, उसमें कितना डिडक्शन है? 40,000. तो 100% मिल जाएगा सब्जेक्ट टू द क्वालिफाइंग लिमिट. दिस इज द मैक्सिमम लिमिट. 60,000 इज द मैक्सिमम लिमिट. तो कितना मिल जाएगा? 100%, दैट इज 40,000. सो 40,000 पूरा का पूरा इज एलिजिबल डिडक्शन बिकॉज इट इज विद इन 10% ऑफ ATI. अब कितना बचा इसमें से? 20,000. ATI में से 60,000 में से 40,000 ऑलरेडी कंज्यूम हो गया. अब हाउ मच इज लेफ्ट? 20,000. अब वहां पे डिडक्शन इज वहां पे डोनेशन इज 50,000 और लेफ्ट ATI का 50%. सो 50,000 और ATI कितना है लेफ्ट? कितना बचा हुआ ATI है? 20,000. 50 और 20 में लोअर क्या है? 20. 20 का 50% इज अलाउड एज डिडक्शन, दैट इज 10,000. 50 का 50,000 का 50% करके फिर कंपेयर नहीं करना, नहीं, दोनों का कंपेयर करके मैक्सिमम 50% मिले. गॉट इट? काफी लोग ऐसे करते हैं कि वो करते हैं मैम 25,000 और बचा हुआ है 20K, इसमें से 20K आ गया आंसर मैम क्योंकि हमने 25,000 उठाया था. नहीं, वट एवर इज द क्वालिफाइंग लिमिट लेफ्ट आफ्टर थर्ड कैटेगरी, कंपेयर इट विद द डोनेशन ऑफ फोर्थ कैटेगरी, विच एवर इज लोअर, उसका 50% वुड बी योर एलिजिबल डिडक्शन. Got it? एक बार क्विकली देखो और कहीं कंफ्यूजन है तो बताओ. इसलिए आई जस्ट क्विकली पिक्ड अप दिस पार्ट सो दैट यू कैन अंडरस्टैंड हाउ यू हैव टू क्लेम डोनेशन अंडर योर फोर्थ कैटेगरी. Yakib, clear? Others, Seetkala, Pooja, everyone, is it clear? Mohammad Abdan, let's take this query post all the instructions. Okay? Sangeeta, sorted. ATI Faizi is your gross total income less all deductions except ATG deductions. प्रकाश, किरण, क्लियर? बस ये याद रखना, पहले एडजस्टेड टोटल इनकम निकाल लो. That pool is available for you for third and fourth category. Third category would be adjusted completely. Whatever is left, that would be compared with the fourth category donations. Whichever is lower, ka 50% would be allowed. Simple. Before coming to GG, let's do other donation categories, which is GGA, GGB and GGC. GGB and GGC, B and C, GGB and GGC are for political parties. So when you're making a contribution to political parties, you get a deduction under GGB and GGC. Difference क्या है? GGB is for Indian company, is for Indian company strictly. So that means only Indian companies making donation would get deduction under GGB. Other than Indian companies making donation to political parties will get deduction under GGC. But दोनों में there is no limit. But what is important is you have to make donations in other than cash mode. यहाँ पे 2000 का भी limit नहीं है. Other than cash mode में the donation has to be made. Simple. GGA is again donation for scientific research and rural development. जैसे scientific research and rural development देखते हैं हमें एकदम से section 35 comes into picture. Section 35 subsection 1 comes into picture, right? So अब अगर if I have business, obviously I can claim deductions under section 35 for scientific research, and I think 35 CCA है for your rural development, correct? But if I do not have business and I want to make donations for scientific research and I want to make donations for rural development, where will I claim deduction? I will claim deduction under 80GGA. Under 80GGA, again, this is non-cash based deductions. Cash होगा तो up to 2000 would be allowed only. Sub assessees को allowed है except one who have PGBP. Why except one who have PGBP? Because the one who have PGBP income can claim these deduction under section 35, subsection 1, clause 3 and 4 और 35 CCA respectively. उनको वहां पे डिडक्शन मिल जाएगी, इसलिए यहाँ पे नहीं मिलेगी. बट फॉर अदर एसएससी दे कैन क्लेम डिडक्शन अंडर 80GGA. Sorted. Now, next question, next deduction which is here is 80GG, which is rent paid for residential accommodation. Ma'am, rent paid for residential accommodation, isn't we have house rent allowance for it? Yes, we have house rent allowance for it. But not everyone is getting house rent allowance, right? I can be into salary, I may not be getting house rent allowance, or I can be a non-salaried person. Then what will happen? So this deduction is basically for those individuals who are not claiming house rent allowance exemption. If you are given house rent allowance, claim exemption under your section 10. But if you do not have house rent allowance, then rent paid ka deduction is claimed under section 80GG. Rent paid ka deduction is claimed under section 80GG. What is the limit? The limit there are three limits, simple. Either you will get 5,000 per month as deduction, that is 60,000 in total, or 25% of adjusted GTI, or rent minus 10% of salary, 10% of adjusted GTI. Whichever is lower would be your deduction amount. 60,000, that is 5,000 per month, or 25% of adjusted total income, or rent minus 10% of adjusted total income. Whichever is lower would be your deduction under section 80GG. Remember, if you're claiming house rent exemption, you cannot claim it again. Ma'am, if we are given an option whether to claim 80GG or house rent exemption, blindly go for house rent exemption. बाबा वहां पे better deductions है. यहाँ पे 80GG में maximum 60,000 ही तो है. Any doubt from 80G to 80GG, GGA, GGB, GGC? So 80G वाली लाइन में कोई डाउट है? No, cooperative societies would also get 80G. 80GGA is also for them. No problem. मिलेगा. Mohammed Abdan, adjusted total income is coming after your gross total income minus special rate income minus all deductions except 80G. Similarly, 80GG के लिए भी adjusted total income ऐसे निकलेगा. Adjusted total income for the respective deduction section is gross total income minus special rate incomes minus all deductions except that particular section. Hmm. ATJJ, important one. ATGG condition first point is that there are three part minimum of that would be allowed. Either rent minus 10% of adjusted total income, 25% of adjusted total income, or 5,000 per month. That is total 60,000. Whichever is the minimum that would be allowed, but it would be allowed for any person other than those who are claiming house rent exemption. So next, now we move on to very important one, employment of new employees. See, government again want is job creation. If you are someone who is into job creation or who is hiring new employees every year, then you are given a deduction which is up to 30% of the new employee cost for 3 years. For 3 consecutive years, you are given the deduction for that. But what are the conditions here? We have to see. Now we are coming to deduction aspect of certain incomes may particularly covered it. So now let's see. This is again section 80JJA, which is JJAA, which is new employee ka cost, additional employee ka cost, employment of new employees. So this is only for those SSC who have tax audit and turnover 1 crore se zyada ya gross receipts wala more than 50 lakhs or 75 lakhs. They are having additional employee का जो भी कॉस्ट होगा, एडिशनल एम्प्लॉय का जो भी कॉस्ट होगा, सो यू विल गेट अ सैलरी डिडक्शन. जो भी मैं एम्प्लॉइज को अपना कॉस्ट सैलरी अमाउंट आई पे, आई गेट इट एज सैलरी डिडक्शन. यस, यस, उसका 30% would be allowed for 3 consecutive years. 3 consecutive years. अब ये हो सकता है कि either I'm starting the business this year, so whosoever all the employees are my new employees. But if I am already into existing business, how will I calculate additional employees? Closing minus opening would be my additional employees. So at the beginning of the year, suppose I had 30 employees. At the closing of the years, I have 45 employees. So 15 are my new employees. 15 are my new employees जिसका cost मुझे मिलेगा. Simple. मैम हमने ज्यादा हायर किए थे बट सम लेफ्ट. डज नॉट मैटर. सिंपल गवर्नमेंट ने क्लियरली कहा है क्लोजिंग माइनस ओपनिंग वुड बी योर एडिशनल एम्प्लॉयज. इन सबको सैलरी अदर देन कैश या बेरर सैलरी मोड में देना है. अब कौन से लोग न्यू एम्प्लॉयज नहीं माने जाएंगे? ये 15 तो निकाल लिया मैंने. So if I'm into new business, all of them would be new employees. But if I'm not into a new business, the closing minus opening would be considered as new employees. But who would not be considered as new employees? No new employees में कौन आएगा? A, employees who have salary of more than 25,000 per month. So government does not want you to put people and get the benefit at director level or any level. Government want you give employment at the ground level. Okay, that's why they are giving you a benefit. So if any employee who has a salary of more than 25,000 per month, he's out of this new employee का benefit. Out of this new employee का benefit. अब suppose मुझे 15 लोगों में से 4 लोगों का salary is more than 25,000. Now बचे 11. उसमें से भी any employee who has worked for less than 240 days. Who has worked for less than 240 days is out. मतलब at least he should have worked for 240 days during the year. अगर सीजनल इंडस्ट्री है तो 150 डेज. सीजनल इंडस्ट्रीज केस हो गई टेक्सटाइल, लेदर, जहाँ पे ऑब्वियसली द काम इज नॉट देयर फॉर द और फुटवेयर फॉर द एंटायर ईयर. उस इंडस्ट्रीज में है तो मिनिमम 150 डेज. उस इंडस्ट्रीज में नहीं है तो 240 डेज. So now suppose in this 11 employees, two are the employees who just recently joined, that is in the month of January or February. So now they're also out for the respective assessment year. Third, employees who do not participate in provident fund. So suppose any provident fund में कौन होगा? All regular employees. Casual employees generally provident fund में नहीं होंगे. So person basically who has not participated in the provident fund, he's also out. He's also out. अब मैम जो एम्प्लॉई लेस देन 240 डेज या 150 डेज काम किए उनको नेक्स्ट ईयर के न्यू एम्प्लॉयज में काउंट कर लोगे. नेक्स्ट ईयर के न्यू एम्प्लॉयज में काम कर लोगे प्रोवाइडेड नेक्स्ट ईयर वो 240 डेज के लिए रहते हैं. ठीक है, प्रोवाइडेड नेक्स्ट ईयर वो 240 डेज के लिए रहते हैं. सो दो एम्प्लॉयज जो मैं बोल रही थी, दे जॉइन इन जनवरी एंड फेब्रुअरी, दे वुड बी कंसिडर्ड न्यू एम्प्लॉयज फॉर द नेक्स्ट ईयर प्रोवाइडेड दे आर एटलीस्ट 240 डेज इन द नेक्स्ट ईयर. ऑडिट मैंडेटरी है, सब कुछ मैंडेटरी है. अब कैसे निकलेगा मैम? हाउ विल वी डू इट? सिंपल, यही पॉइंट याद करके वी विल नाउ स्टार्ट द क्वेश्चंस. इसके अलावा ड्यू डेट पे रिटर्न फाइल करना जरूरी है, ऑल दोस पॉइंट. I've now seen this illustration which is in front of you. This illustration helps you understand this particular section very easily. Mr. A has commenced the business during the year. So he's a new business person. All the employees are additional employees. He's into manufacturing of computers on 1st April 23. He employed total 350 person during the year. The details of whom are as follow. 75 employees joined on 1st April 2023. The regular employees 24,000 ke liye. Okay. They are very much eligible. 125 employees joined on 1st May 2023. Regular employees है, but 26,000 उनका सैलरी है. नॉट एलिजिबल फॉर 80 JJA. सैलरी डिडक्शंस तो सबका मिलेगा. एडिशनल उसी सैलरी कॉस्ट का आपको 30% एडिशनल डिडक्शन मिल रहा है. तो अगर मैं 100 रुपए का खर्चा कर रही हूँ, मुझे 130 का डिडक्शन मिल रहा है. ठीक है, ओनली फॉर एम्प्लॉयज हु आर एलिजिबल एम्प्लॉयज. पहले न्यू एम्प्लॉयज निकाला, उसमें से फिर जो नहीं है उसको आउट किया. 50 employees are employed on 1st of August 2023 for a salary of 24,500, but it is written that casual employees do not participate in provident fund. So they are also out. They are also out. Now, next is 100 employees are there who join on 1st September 2023, who joined on 1st September 2023. Yes, the salary is less than 25, but if you count the days, it is only for 240. It is less than 240 days, September to March. So this year they will not be considered. This year they will not be considered. So what is the additional cost which is coming as deduction under 80 JJA is 24,000. 75 employees का 75 employees into 24,000 per month into 12 महीने का 30%, which comes as this. $24,000 into 12 into 75. ठीक है, उसके अलावा और कोई डिडक्शन नहीं मिलेगा बिकॉज बाकी दो तो एलिजिबल नहीं है, सेकेंड एंड थर्ड. एंड फोर्थ वाला का इसलिए एलिजिबल नहीं है बिकॉज द ड्यूरेशन इज लेस देन 240 days. The duration is less than 240 days. Got it? But ये वाला इंफॉर्मेशन हमें क्या बताते हैं? If the profits and gains derived from business of manufacturers computers is 75 lakh and his total income, total turnover is 10.16 crores. That means it is the employee who is eligible for tax audit. So very much he is able to claim 80JJA. But such information, if it is not given to you, then automatically you have to write, we are assuming so and so person is eligible for tax audit, and that's why we are giving 80JJA. अगर वो information नहीं है, please do not assume it and think and do the question. Write it, okay? फोर्थ वाला मोहम्मद याकिब नेक्स्ट ईयर डेफिनेटली एलिजिबल हो जाएगा. सो 24,000, ये जो 100 एम्प्लॉइज हैं उनका, प्रोवाइडेड दे आर देयर फॉर 240 days, उनका कॉस्ट नेक्स्ट ईयर जो भी होगा दैट वुड बी अलाउड एज डिडक्शन. अब ये 75 एम्प्लॉइज का कॉस्ट जो आपने क्लेम किया वुड बी अलाउड एज डिडक्शन दिस ईयर, next year, and next to next year also. 3 years consecutively they are given as deduction. So auditor of these particular deduction, when you are doing an audit, 80JJA का deduction बहुत carefully take करना. ठीक है? But next case में they are right. What would be your answer if A has commenced the business of manufacture of footwear? So the moment they write footwear, we have to be very careful that this is an industry of seasonal nature. That means 150 days is the minimum criteria for new employees. 150 days is the minimum criteria for the new employees. Hence, the deduction can be claimed for the fourth one in this. So 24,000 into 100 into 7. 7 months. September से लेके March तक. उसका 30% would also be allowed as deduction, which you can see here. 24,000 into 7 into 100. Reduction under section 80JJ comes to 1,15,20,000. I mean, kitna amazing hai na? One, you are getting the reductions under salary. Another, you are getting 30% additional reduction under 80JJ for creating new employment. Very good, Yakib. समझ आ गया? ऐसा ही question generally would come for 80JJ, where if you'll remember the points, you can easily take it up. Very good, Amandan. Casual employees जो payrolls पे नहीं होते. Okay, last 2, 3 or couples of deductions left, ATQQB and RRB. So the next year, Fazzi, whatever is the cost, he will claim this 64,80,000 for the next year plus deduction on 4 points. Correct. ATM, I am abhi leaving. वो डोमेस्टिक कंपनी डिविडेंड्स के ऊपर है. पहले क्यूकेबी एंड आरआरबी करते हैं. QQB and RRB both are royalty income related deduction. Yani when assessee has royalty income in his PGBP income, then QQB and RRB are eligible. With when assessee has royalty income in his PGBP income, then QQB and RRB are eligible. First of all, RRB करते हैं, बहुत simple है. 80 RRB is for patent, royalty on patents, and 80 QQB is for royalty on artistic, literary, scientific work. So अगर मैं author हूँ किसी book का और मुझे royalty मिल रही है, then I'm eligible for 80 QQB. But अगर मैंने कुछ patent निकाला, उस पे use करने दे दिया and I'm getting royalty, I'm eligible for deduction under 80 RRB. मेरा patent register होगा और लोग उस patent को अगर use करेंगे और royalty देंगे, then RRB. Commonly is QQB though. Okay. So who will get the royalty? The person who have registered that patent, he will get the royalty. Now the royalty, the deduction income would be taken under your 80, your PGBP part, but uska deduction would be allowed under 80 RRB. Kitna deduction allowed hoga? Simple. Royalty amount or 3 lakh, whichever is less. Very easy. Royalty अगर 15 लाख मिला, 3 लाख का deduction मिल जाएगा 80 RRB में. Royalty 2 लाख से 80 RRB में 2 lakhs का deduction. Royalty amount or maximum 3 lakhs. if any royalty is received outside India, you have to make sure that it is repatriated to India within 6 months from the end of the previous year or by time allowed by RBI. तभी वो डिडक्शन के लिए एलिजिबल होगा. यानी जब आप कंपेयर करोगे होल ऑफ सच अमाउंट में, तो होल इनकम में आप तभी लोगे व्हेन इट इज रिपैट्रिएटेड टू इंडिया. Otherwise, you will not claim it. Now, what is the difference between AT-QQB? AT-QQB is when you are author of certain books other than textbooks, or you're getting you're author of books like for literary, artistic, or scientific work. You're getting a royalty whether as lump sum or whether as otherwise on certain sale or other conditions. ठीक है, इस केस में भी क्या है? Deduction which is allowed is royalty or 3 lakh, whichever is less. Royalty और 3 lakh, whichever is less. But eligible royalty को निकालने का एक प्रॉब्लम है यहाँ पे. Eligible royalty which you have to take is a problematic situation here. जो मेरा eligible royalty है ना, which is to be compared with 3 lakhs, अगर तो वो लमसम है तो कोई इशू नहीं है. लमसम है मतलब वन टाइम मिला है, देयर इज नो प्रॉब्लम. बट अगर वो वन टाइम नहीं मिला, so whatever suppose amount is received as royalty, whatever amount is received as royalty, or in the case lump sum nahi mila, then the royalty which is restricted here is 15% of the value of books sold. तो जनरली क्या होता है रॉयल्टी गाइड, ऐसे ऐसे टर्म्स कंडीशन होते हैं, या तो वो सीधा का सीधा पूरा कॉपीराइट ले लेंगे आपके काम का, द पब्लिशिंग हाउस, एंड दे विल गिव यू अ लमसम अमाउंट. तब तो कोई इशू नहीं है, लमसम अमाउंट और 3 लाख विच एवर इज लोअर, नॉट अ प्रॉब्लम. Sometimes what they do is they make a condition based royalty, that we will give you 10% on books sold, we will give you 10% on the price of the book, or whatever is the condition, we'll give you 20% royalty, whatever is the condition they have decided, that whenever there is a book sold base or sale based royalty which is not lump sum, I should say, then in that case you have to check that the eligible royalty which you have to compare with 3 lakhs here has to be either the amount received or maximum 15% of the value of books sold. 15% of the value of books sold. Value लिखा है, सेल प्राइस नहीं लिखा, एमआरपी नहीं लिखा, जो भी बुक सोल्ड है उसका जो वैल्यू है ड्यूरिंग द ईयर, बुक पब्लिश्ड का भी नहीं लिखा, उसका 15% और अमाउंट रिसीव्ड विच एवर इज लोअर, वो एलिजिबल रॉयल्टी होगा. दैट आई विल कंपेयर इट विद 3 lakhs and whichever is less would be my deduction. So let's do a quick question on this. और रिपैट्रिएशन वाला कंडीशन तो है ही है. ओके. Illustration number 18. Sorry, where did it go? Is it readable? एकदम से okay. Akash earned a royalty of 2,88,000 from a foreign country for a book authored by him, being a work of literary nature. The rate of royalty is 18% of the value of books. Okay. The expenditure incurred by him earning this royalty was 40,000. Okay. The amount remitted in India till 30th September is 230. Okay. The remaining amount was not remitted until 31st March 25. Fine. Compute the amount included in the gross total income and the amount of deduction which he is eligible for under the section 80QQB, provided he's opted from 115 BAC. Simple. First of all, PGBP income, how much he will take? Naturally, 288 he has earned during the year, and इसमें से 40,000 he will less to 248 royalty is shown under PGBP income. Now we come to your deductions under section 80QQB. This question need to look at. For us, we have been given that he has received 288, which is 18% of value of books sold. Now, if I have to ask you, 18% of the value is 288, right? What is the value then? You will say, ma'am, 288 divided by 18%. Correct. That would be the Value 288. 88,000 divided by 18%, which is 16 lakh. And for 80, I am writing GGB. Sorry. 80 QQB, sorry. Now 16 lakhs we have taken as the value. No problem. What is for 80 QQB, what is the deduction what is the eligible royalty, which is 15% of the value of book sold. So eligible royalty is 2,40,000. ये समझ आया पहली बात कि 240 कैसे आया? सबको क्लियर हुआ how 240 came? Does anyone has any doubt कि how 240 came? Sorry. ठीक है. Sorted. Now from this 240, how much is remitted to eligible royalty कितना है?
I have not
240.
understood, madam, how 240 came.
So first of all, we have computed it as per, we have been given the question that we have received 288,000 as royalty, which is 18% of the value of books sold. So how much is the value? It's this 2,88,000 divided by 18%, we get the value of books sold, which is 16 lakh. And eligible royalty, as already told, is 15% of the value of books sold, which is 240.
Lakhs? 16 lakhs? How 16 lakhs?
Simply 2,88,000 is 18% of the total value. So if I have to calculate value, coming to the unitary method.
Hmm.
Yes, sir?
2,88,000 divided by 18%.
Correct.
Okay.
Shall I proceed,
You are
sir?
finding out 18% of value, na? 2,88,000. So that will be
We have been
16,000.
given in the question that 18% of value is 288. So you have to compute the value, which is the X here.
Okay.
Okay. Shall I proceed?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. So I hope everyone has come to eligible royalty amount, right? So next step, which I told you when you are computing the deduction under 80 QQB is eligible royalty or your 3 lakh, whichever is lower. But at the same time, you have to remember what is the amount which is being remitted to India. The amount which is remitted to India is 230 only. It's written in the question which we just saw. The amount of royalty which is remitted to India is 2,30,000. So if this eligible royalty would have been 220, then we would have picked up eligible royalty amount. But the amount which is remitted to India until 6 months is 230 only. So what would be our point of comparison? 2,30,000. 2,30,000 or 3 lakhs. This is what you do? No. Because out of this 2,30,000, we have already claimed certain deductions. We have already claimed certain deductions and taken a benefit under your PGBP income. That also has to be excluded. That also has to be excluded. How much ka benefit we have already taken? We have already taken the benefit of 40,000. Yes or no? In the question, it is clearly written. If you read it, when we did it also, that for incurring this royalty, 40,000 has been deducted. So 40,000 ka benefit you have already taken here and reduced your income by 40,000. Again, I cannot claim it, right? That has to be excluded. Out of 230, 40 would be reduced. And then the comparison of 1,90,000 or 3 lakh, whichever is lower, will come. The answer would be 1,90,000 eligible deduction under 80 QQB. A question generally comes from this, and you have to go step by step. First check is that what is my eligible royalty. Second check would be what is the amount remitted to India. And third check would be to reduce any expense if already claimed under PGBP. After that, what amount will come? You have to compare it with 3 lakh. Whichever would be lower would be your answer for 80 QQB deduction. Simple. Yaqub, sorted? Perfect. 80 QQB में any doubt? Mohammad Abdan, is it clear now? Sushil? Perfect. Ajay sir, should we start the live interactive session? If we deduct under PGBP itself, then can we do additional in QQB? See, deduction, आपको PGBP में Seethkala, whatever deduction you are claiming under PGBP, that is there, that is reducing your income. Now, apart from the taxable royalty, which got taxable under your PGBP head, uska how much deduction you can claim would depend upon your eligible royalty and would depend upon the royalty which you are being remitted to India. Yes, eligible 15% part only have to be seen when fuzzy you are not receiving a lump sum royalty. If it's a lump sum royalty, then you have to just simply come to lump sum royalty. What is the amount remitted to India? What is the deduction claimed? And compare it with 3 lakh. Ajit sir, Nisagar sir, can we give students right to speak and interact on the queries? I believe you would be given speaking rights. So if you have any of your queries left, you can take it. Meanwhile, I'll quickly go to ATTT and TTB. Easy one and finish it, okay? Okay. Now, the last two sections which are there for certain incomes are ATTTA, ATTTA or ATTTB. Now, no SSC can claim both of these together. Either you will be claiming ATTTA or ATTTB. Now, what is the difference? First of all, ATTTB is only for resident senior citizen, not for everyone. Not for everyone. While on the other hand, any individual can, or HUF in fact, can claim ATTTA other than a resident senior citizen. Now, what type of deduction this particular section or these two sections cover? See, students, we know any interest income, whether in the form of saving bank deposit, fixed deposits, which we are getting is our income from other sources. Yes, we tax it under the head income from other sources. With respect to that, we get deduction under these respective section. Now, ATTTA is a very simple section which says that you will get a maximum deduction of 10,000 for your saving bank interest only, for your saving interest only. So if in your total income there is saving bank interest, you will get a deduction for that to an extent of 10,000. So for saving bank interest, which you have included in your other sources from all banks combined, cooperative banks combined, and post office. Okay. All combined, you are getting suppose saving bank interest of 12,000. So ATTTA may you will get a deduction of 10,000 automatically. If you're showing saving bank interest of say 5,000, ATTTMA, you'll get a deduction of 5,000 only. Strictly for the saving bank interest, you will get a deduction under ATTTA. Now, for ATTTB, there is better facility. Why? Because the government thinks that senior citizen has a major income coming from interest, whether it is saving interest, that is your demand deposit interest, or your time deposit interest in the forms of FD or recurring deposits. So the interest a resident senior citizen gets is taxed under other sources, definitely. But here the benefit is not only for saving interest, the benefit is for FD interest and recurring deposit interest also. And the maximum deduction which is allowed here is 50,000. Maximum deduction which is allowed here is 50,000. Again, for example, let's take an example. Mr. X, who is age of 65 years, resident senior citizen, okay? He's getting FD interest during the year, 30,000. He's getting saving bank interest during the year, 5,000. He's getting recurring deposit interest during the year, say 10,000. All of this will become part of his other sources income, 30 plus 5 plus 10, 45K, correct? But when he will compute the gross total income, from that he will get the deduction of 80 TTB for 45,000. Maximum 50 or the interest which have been received in the forms of term deposits or or demand deposit from banks, post office, or your cooperative banks. Had Mr. X not been a senior citizen and he had received all these interests, then 45,000 would have been definitely taxed under other sources, but the deduction would allowed under 80 TTA would only be 5,000. Would only be 5,000. This is the difference between your 80 TTA and TTB. Got it, Yakir? Correct. FD ka interest ka deduction is not allowed for TTA. Only saving bank interest comes. And trust me, saving bank interest 10,000 means that you have a good deposit maintained. Very good, Sangeeta. Abdan, koi doubt? Very good. Sushil, sorted. Very good. So these are all your deductions from your gross total income. So please give anyone who wants to speak or have any interactive session. Very good, Sayanto. Please give the speaking rights. Okay. Test your knowledge question one ka point number 3. Yeah, sure, Ritika. Just 1 second. I'll come to the question. Okay, I'm sharing the screen. Ritika has one doubt from this part, right? Um, so she's saying examine the following statement with regard to the provisions of income tax. Uh, Third part is in order to eligible to claim deduction under ATC, investment contributions or subscriptions in eligible or approved mode should be made out of income chargeable to tax. See, definitely you have to make the contributions or subscriptions in eligible and approved channel. That is correct. But it is nowhere written that it should be made from the income which is taxable. It should be made from your taxable income only. So this point is not correct. Okay, clear, Ritika? So I'm surprised that we did all the reductions in 2.5 hours slot and all your doubts are clear. So if there is any doubt, please let us know. Otherwise, we can wrap up. Then I think your query, which was unanswered. मेडिकल एक्सपेंस का डिडक्शन नहीं मिलता अब्दन एडीडी में. एटीडी में यू डू नॉट गेट डिडक्शन फॉर मेडिकल एक्सपेंस. You get deduction for your insurance premium which you pay. But if a person is of 60 years of age and does not have insurance premium, then unka medical expenditure deduction is allowed, and that too has to be in the limit of 50,000. Perfect. I hope everyone's doubts are sorted and clear. See, 80D Seetkala is for your medical insurances in general. 80D, 80DDB, medical insurance premiums, okay? 80DDB and 80DD. So 80DD is basically when you are maintaining a dependent disabled, then for them you claim a flat deduction under your 80DD section. You have to ensure that you are making certain expenditure, but the deduction is not based on expenditure. The deduction is based on a flat deduction of 75 or 1,25,000. And 80DDB is altogether separate, which is for specified diseases, and ailments. Now, suppose if I have to take an example here, let's take DDB and D combined. Suppose Mr. X is paying a medical insurance now for himself, and this disease which he was treated for was a specified disease. Now, medical insurance paid was 20,000. Disease cost was so treatment cost suppose was 1,80,000, and covered by the insurance company was hardly 1 lakh. Now, the medical insurance ka deduction he will claim under 80D. The amount of the expenditure over and above the insurance claim, he can claim under 80DD-B because it is a specified disease, and specified disease ka medical treatment is covered under your 80DD-B to the extent of 40,000 or 1 lakh, whichever is less. 40,000 for the normal person, 1 lakh for senior citizen. So 80AC fuzzy says that you have to file your return of income before time, and that is when you are claiming deductions with respect to certain incomes. Yani wo wala list which is starts from 80IA and goes till 80QQB, that wala list. Uske liye you have to file the return on time. Pooja, additional deduction under section 80CCD subsection 1B, correct, is flat deduction of 50,000, provided it is within the actual contribution. Agar actual contribution 30,000 hai, then additional deduction is 80CCD 1B mein would be 30 only. Okay. I hope all your concerns are answered. Anyone else is left? Mohammed, medical expenses and expenditure, it is not included in gross total income. It is a legitimate deduction from gross total income because remember starting of the class we were talking about the same thing that certain deductions are expenditure based, certain deductions are income based. That is, if you have those income, you can claim that deduction based on that. So there is nothing like expense is your income. No, no, no. Expense based pay, you're getting the deductions. Okay, so there is one of my friend have asked a question, ma'am, illustration 19 में 165 कैसे आ गए? Okay. So a question is given to you. Mr. A resident individual, age 61 year, has earned a business income computed 135, lottery income 120, and fixed deposit 30,000. He invested an amount of 1,15,000 PPA. What is the total income of Mr. A for assessment year so and so, and he has opted out of 115 BSc. That is, he's paying tax as per old scheme. Now, profits and gains, simple, very easy question. Profits and gains of business and profession, fully taxable. Interest on FD, taxable. Lottery income, taxable. Total comes to the age is 61. Okay. Total comes to 2,85,000. Total income comes to 285. Out of this 285, I can claim deduction of 80C PPA, correct, and 80 TTB. Why TTB? Because the person is a resident senior citizen, and resident senior citizen get 80 TTB interest deduction, which is for FD, saving bank, recurring deposit, all combined. So the maximum deduction allowed there is 50,000, but the interest is only 30, so I will claim 30,000. Now this is 180. Ab interesting part is, ma'am, why this is restricted to 165? Why 180 क्यों नहीं मिल रहा? The reason is, remember at the beginning of the class, I told you that the deductions from gross total income are from normal incomes. They are not allowed from special rate incomes. So even if I have a total income of 285, but I cannot claim deduction from 120. 120 has to be taxed at 30% flat. The 285 minus 120, only 165 is an eligible amount from which I can claim the deduction, or 165 is the only part of the gross total income from which I can claim the deduction. So that's why all my deductions got restricted to 165. Had it been lottery income, had it been capital gain under 112, all of that has to be excluded. Okay, then Agniveer scheme में whatever contribution the Agniveer does during the year is allowed as deduction under 80 H subsection 1, and whatever contribution the government makes for the benefit of Agniveer first is treated as salary, and then it is allowed as deduction under 80 H subsection 2. And 80 H subsection 2 is allowed for 115 BAC employees also, 115 BAC people also, or assessees also. Okay? Perfect. So I hope all your queries are answered. Wish you all the best. See you on Monday. Please revise TDS thesis provisions and we'll be back. Thank you so much.